Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are back here in the studio in Northern Colorado, as you can tell with that beautiful view behind me up to Long's Peak. Hope everybody is staying safe with COVID-19. We are still staying isolated here on the ranch. Fortunately, we have the studio right here with us, so we're still able to put out the show each and every week. If you are a new time listener of the show, welcome. And want to point out that we're just starting season 16 here, 1st of April. So if you're new, there is 15 years of archives that you can go dig through. Yes, show number 1 is still up in the archive. I wouldn't recommend it. It was recorded on a very cheap microphone in a bathroom at a Marriott resort in Phoenix, Arizona. It has a fun little experiment, which now has turned into the show. The last couple of weeks, we've been doing the virtual brainstorming. So I've been showing some brainstorming efforts using Jamboard. Based on some feedback, we're planning some new ones in the future, so stay tuned. Those will be coming up. But I think today's show is going to be an interesting topic. Many of you know my background, having been at Hewlett-Packard as the Chief Technology Officer and retired, albeit my wife now says I can no longer use the R word. It is absolutely meaningless for me. But I retired as the CTO back in 2011, and when I was at HP, I had the gaming division reporting to me. So if you're familiar with the gaming industry, the gaming space, gaming PCs, laptops, etc., those were all products that I was involved in because I used to be a hardcore gamer, but probably not nearly as much as I used to be. But today we are going to talk about gaming, and I've got a guest here today that's doing an interesting kind of little twist on the typical gaming strategies and approaches that are out there. So let me bring on the guest. So Austin Smith from Mission Control. Austin, thanks for taking the time to join us here in Killer Innovations.
Thanks for having me, Phil.
So, you know, as you and I were talking before we started the show today, earlier on, right? I gave you a little bit of my context of my background on gaming, but give us a little bit of background on you. What's your background? I know you live in St. Louis, right? But give us a little context here. You know, did you grow up there? Where'd you go to school?
Yeah, of course. So I grew up in St. Louis. I'm born and raised here. I then went to college at St. Louis University and learned a lot about entrepreneurship, economics, innovation, and, you know, it's kind of all led me down this path here. But my relationship with gaming, you kind of brought up your relationship with gaming at HP. I mean, mine, like you said, you are a hardcore gamer. I grew up gaming, same way. But it was, you know, gaming with my brother or with my friends as a way to spend time together. So I actually wouldn't say, like, call myself a gamer. I don't call myself a hardcore gamer. I don't, you know, play nearly as much as you might consider a gamer or a hardcore gamer plays. What I play in very often is with my friends, with my brother, as a way to spend time together. It's a community gathering activity. And that has what has brought, you know, the core of Mission Control together too, is that Mission Control focuses on that community aspect rather than that hardcore competitive aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the gaming market has tried to solicit some form of this social interaction, you know, with, you know, things like Twitch or, you know, e-gaming, esports, whether it be semi-pro or pro. I remember, this has got to be 2006. I happened to be in Busan, South Korea, when a huge professional gaming event was occurring. First professional gaming event I ever attended. I think it was 2006. I just happened to walk into the stadium, 45,000 people in the stadium watching professional gaming. And all the tech companies in Korea all were team sponsors. And I was just blown away. Like, I thought of gaming as like same thing, me sitting in my living room, you know, playing with my friends, or I might be online in the early days, you know, doing a little bit of playing. But like professional gaming, when you got 45,000, so it's almost like going to an NFL game or an NBA game or whatever. But that was one social aspect of gaming, and the gaming industry's always tried to find that social hook. And some of it works, and quite honestly, I don't think some of it doesn't work so well, right? So,
Well, yeah.
So go.
You're not wrong at all, and I think the easiest way to look at the esports industry is to look at traditional sports as well. So after college, I went to work for a group called Stadia Ventures, which is an early stage venture capital firm based in St. Louis that invests in sports tech and esports companies. And I spent a long time looking at the markets and comparing them, and you'll see that both have professional levels, like you were just talking about. Both have amateur levels where there's minor leagues or there's amateur tournaments where you can win money and everybody's trying to get up and get on those teams. Both have varsity, where you have NCAA basketball, but you also have, great varsity club in club sports at the college and high school level. But one thing that traditional sports has over here that esports doesn't have is a level of recreational play. There's 68 million individuals in the United States who play team-based traditional sports. And that's typically at parks and rec departments, YMCAs, JCCs, and so on. However, there's 103 million individuals who play multiplayer video gaming every week, and an average of 8 hours a week, as tracked by the Entertainment Software Association. And those people don't have any structure for that recreational play. And I play soccer, right? I play traditional sports too. Every Thursday night, between 7 or 9. In the before times, at least, I would go play soccer with my friends, and we love playing. We'd sign up for, another session. It costs $80 per person to sign up for another session. And then we lose every week anyways, because we're terrible at soccer, but we love doing it and we pay money anyways, because we enjoy spending time together. We enjoy the social aspect, and then we enjoy drinking some beer after the game. That recreational piece, that aspect that's all focused on the social aspect, the experience, and maybe a little on the beer, that is missing from esports. And realizing that, not being able to find it in my time at Stadia Ventures, I left that job with my co-founder Byron to create Mission Control, which is a B2B SaaS platform for rec league esports.
It's interesting from the standpoint that you're right. It's not just the watching somebody else play. It's the interaction, like you say, in rec leagues. Right, one of my son-in-laws went to college on a baseball scholarship as a pitcher, right? So now he's married, he's got 3 kids, right? And he still wants that thrill of being on the mound, right? So he plays in the adult league, right? And boy, he's diehard on wanting to keep that social interaction with his friends. And I have to keep reminding him that he is getting older, right? He doesn't have quite that 95-mile-an-hour fastball anymore like he did when he was a sophomore in college. But
right, might not have it, but you got to live your glory somewhere. And in the same case with gaming, you don't have to be a hardcore gamer to enjoy gaming. You don't have to play constantly every day. You don't have to be the best at Warzone. These days that's the big game. But you can enjoy time with your friends. Like I get on to play Warzone during this pandemic, and the point of it is to hang out with my friends. We hang out with my brother, and that's what we do. Sometimes we win, which is awesome, but I don't spend my time playing all day. I don't identify as that hardcore gamer. I identify as a social gamer, a casual gamer, and that's what Mission Control is for.
Well, and what's really interesting is you're differentiating between what because there's this perception of what a hardcore gamer is, right? It's the guy that's playing 30, 40 hours a week, who lives in the basement, who never can get a date, right? All the all the traditional stereotypes about hardcore gamers. But, in fact, I was just looking at some statistics that some people shared with me. But when you look at it and you think about how much time, though, even, quote, casual gamers, right? If you're spending 8 hours a week playing a game, in some cases, that's more time than people spend doing almost any other single activity, in their life outside of work, right? Something on the casual, entertainment side. And it was always an interesting statistic when I was at HP is what is the most profitable segment of gaming is middle-aged women. And people are totally blown away by it because I said it's the casual gaming, it's the Bejeweled and Words with Friends, and they're playing like 8 or 10 different games, all at $10 a piece or whatever, and they'll try any new game. Versus like me, I'm a Company of Heroes guy, right? So I play one game, I buy the upgrade packs, and I spend my $40 a year, kind of a thing, right? People don't. But if I went to my wife and said, "Guess what? You're the most profitable segment in gaming," she'd punch me, right? Because she doesn't think of herself as a gamer. But it's
Right.
an entertainment space that generates more revenue than Blu-ray sales, and is bigger than Hollywood. We were talking a little bit about where you started at from the VCs, and the VC you happened to be with was also in sports, tech, etc. So give us a little bit more on the founding of Mission Control. What was it? Where did you start from, and then kind of bring us up to today where you're at?
Sure. I think it goes back a lot longer before the founding, in which so I grew up. I'm one of five uh, in a family of seven, and then my mom is one of seven children. My dad is one of nine children, so just large family overall. And what's interesting on my dad's side, my dad's a business owner. He's in the construction industry, but he's got eight other siblings, and pretty much all of them, the grand majority of them, have all owned their own business at some point as well. My grandpa, his dad included. So there's a little bit of this idea of just like this business, or just taking stuff and putting it on your own shoulders and just hustling through is kind of in the blood in a way. So that's been something that I've always been interested in. It's just automatic. I never really thought about it. It's just something that I wanted to do. Then you get into my college days, and I met, my co-founder, Byron. Byron and I, we worked great together in a lot of ways. We went in business school at St. Louis University, and happened to be on, the same floor freshman year. We're just great friends, but we also worked together in a lot of different ways. We tried different clubs. We tried different things. We were very, great teammates in every new thing we tried. And that continued to, we actually would get hired together, at the Center for Entrepreneurship at St. Louis University. We got hired together. That led us to getting hired together at Stadia Ventures. And then by that point, by the end of all that, we had worked professionally together in different ways for, 5 years by that point. So we knew how to work together. We knew how to achieve success together. We knew how, each one of us excelled, and it actually made a perfect setup for us to work together for Mission Control.
So the question I have then is, when you look at, very successful entrepreneurs, it's always a team. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Bill Hillard, David Packard, right? They all had complementary skills. So is that the case with you and your co-founder? Do you each have overlapping skills, or are there distinct separate skills that make you just a really strong team?
I think there's a little bit of both. I mean, we have overlapping values and interests and end purpose. Like, that is what's overlapping. And I think that has allowed us to be super hyper focused on what we care about. And, with a lot of these core decisions, or any core decision when you're building a business, or the purpose of the business, or your branding and your culture, a lot of that is just so easily aligned because of how similar we are in that way. However, we have very different skills and personalities that allow us to excel. Byron's very focused on the details, and he's very thorough, and he's very good at making sure every single person we work with is happy. Our customers are very focused on getting the quality that they deserve. I'm, on the other hand, just having fun drawing on a whiteboard, saying, what if we do it this way? But, drawing arrows around, and, this is just, the play call like that I love to draw up. It ends up being that he's, he executes stuff. He GSD, gets stuff done. And then you have me on the other hand, and I can put a strategy together. I can put the vision of the product together. I end up building the product from the product management viewpoint, and that's where we kind of differentiate. But we have a lot of things that overlap too, and we're a good team for those reasons.
Well, and I think that's important, right? Because if I think back to my years at HP, Bill Hillard and David Packard, right? Bill was the engineer's engineer. Dave was the vision, long-term strategy, the public-facing side. Bill never wanted to talk in public forums. Dave had no problem walking up to a microphone, right? And those kind of complementary skills. And Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and I know both the Steves, right? Very Steve Wozniak, engineer's engineer. He's actually ex-HP. Steve Jobs, very much that vision, the the person who can draw, who can draw on the whiteboard. So kudos to you to finding that early, because a lot of entrepreneurs struggle trying to find, that partner that you can just absolutely trust and you are aligned on values and ethics and vision and understanding, what your missions in life is. So kudos for you
We
on that.
got lucky for sure, but I also give a lot of credit to St. Louis University for the not only like their programs and entrepreneurship economics and that sort of focus, but just their focus on building full people of well-rounded, good character, and I think like that's a lot of the big portion of where I found a good founder.
So how did you and Byron then go from friends to working at the VCs to then saying, let's go start Mission Control?
Well, I mean, in our time at Mission Control, we were really, enjoying our experience, learning a lot about startups, working directly with entrepreneurs and getting a, valuable perspective of the industry overall. And one of those, pieces that I kind of shared earlier was that we noticed that esports is this massive market growing quickly, very exciting thing, but there was no infrastructure for what we described ourselves as casual gamers, both of us feeling that way, neither one of us calling ourselves the gamer. And I spent a long time looking for that infrastructure, and simply we couldn't find it. And we'd known we wanted to like dive into. We felt like we could build something. Like that's something that didn't just show up one day. We knew going into like we thought venture capital was exciting because we could learn about how people built things. And when that opportunity presented itself, it's hard to say, wow, it's hard to walk away from that. It's like you can see it. You can see the opportunity there. It's hard to walk away. So we got encouraged to go start it and see what we could make of it.
So when did you pull the trigger? How long? What was it a year ago? 6 months ago?
Yeah, year and a half ago.
Okay.
It was late 2018 when I left Stadia to build this, and Byron joined me a few months later when we started to get things off the ground a little bit.
That's great. Well, I mean, because I get flooded with people, PR teams wanting to get, their clients on the show or whatever. And what did intrigue me was I thought you've got a unique position in an industry that's just massive. I think people just underestimate how big revenue generating gaming is in the economy. And given, look, we're in a strange world with COVID, right? And everything is shut down, and you're watching. But your unique position though is you can leverage the fact of that social aspect, which is just absolutely just so important, so critical now, with everybody kind of being, shut down, locked down, can't go anywhere, and people are just hungry for how do we do that social interaction. So Austin, we were talking about COVID. I was sharing, looked at your business and such. But what has been the impact of COVID on Mission Control? Because like there's lots of companies that are all just trying to get started to take advantage of COVID. But in your case, you existed well before it, but it's obviously it's got to drive an advantage because of the social nature of what it is you're trying to build.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing. I think people, I mean, this is a tough time for everyone, and people need each other. When, people face difficult situations, people lean on each other for support and for experience. And I feel like at this time it's a little strange because of the pandemic, because of the, lock-in orders, we have, you don't have other people to lean on. You have the people immediately in your house, but you don't have your typical community to depend on. So that need to depend on community has gone from physical to digital. And I think that digital aspect, where can you find a digital community? I think there's other places you can find. I think social media sites offer those things, but specifically in gaming, you can have interactions with people. You can have, find special communities around your interests in a completely new and interesting way. So when things started coming around COVID and colleges started, canceling their classes or going online with their classes, when parks and rec departments start saying, hey, no baseball at all this spring, I think a lot of people were sad because they wouldn't have those communities to depend on, wouldn't have those communities to interact with. And that's when we started getting a lot of attention. And that's because what we are, at its core, Mission Control sets up rec leagues, but just with video games rather than with soccer or baseball. And it can be in person, but it can also be digital. And for that reason, we had a lot of interest from college intramural groups, from parks and rec departments, from adult social groups, and so on, that are focused on saying, hey, why don't we create digital communities just around esports instead of traditional sports? That's exactly what we do, and that's how we are helping people connect during a tough time.
So let me ask you a question about Mission Control specifically. If you think about park and rec leagues, right? Part of it is these are people that you'll see not just on playing soccer, but you might run into them midweek at work or at a restaurant. Obviously, we don't have that experience. But is what Mission Control, is it tied to a geography where people, in addition to wanting to play, maybe they have a common game they're interested in, but it's also the fact that there's this outside social element, or is it just purely 100% virtual, meaning the drive is you could create teams of the best players around the world to all play together? Or is there a combination of both?
It's a combination of both, but very focused on the micro community. And I think that's the big thing that makes us different from anyone else in the space, is that our focus is entirely on gathering those micro communities. And just it so happens to be around gaming, and we'll make it a lot of fun, but the focus is the gathering of those micro communities. It doesn't have to be geographic. For parks and rec departments, it is. For colleges who use our product, they're more interested in just, are you a student at that college? For other groups, it could be all sorts of different things. Colleges could do it for their alumni groups. Sport and social clubs just want to find people between 18 and 35 who are in one of their core cities, or so on. So GameStop wants to do it for their local customers. All of these organizations are most interested in just creating a community around some sort of qualifier, and then just creating a social experience for that community. It's not trying to find the best player of Warzone. I'm not interested in that. There are other sites for that. Go have fun. What we're interested in is the best experience with your friends or with a new community around Warzone. That's what I think is exciting.
Well, it sounds like there's a secondary social fabric that brings them together. It's not the game by itself, but it seems to be, whether I went to the University of Illinois at Chicago, so you got a little bit of an affinity. You and I were teasing each other in the break. You're in St. Louis. I grew up in Chicago. We agreed not to talk baseball between St. Louis and Chicago. For those of you who don't know, arch enemies, but there's always seems to be some social fabric element, and I guess secondarily, that brings these people together. It's not just gaming, but it's this overlap, I guess. If I think about it like a Venn diagram, that brings them together. So where are you at? Where is Mission Control at from the standpoint of its phase of life, its maturity level?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we have been around for about a year and a half, and in about mid 2019, we launched a beta with a number of customers, about 40 different customers, to test our product. Since then, early 2020, we launched our product to a larger group of people and started, really scaling it. So right now we have 125 customers on our platform. These are organizations who are then pushing it out to user bases who are then joining in rec leagues. In the past month, we've had 3 times the amount of leagues played than in our entire history. So we've been having a lot of growth over the last couple of months. And that's because, 1, this is something that people have always been interested in, are really excited about, but 2, it's super relevant right now.
Right.
With some really great and interesting customers that include Duke University, MIT, Washington University, also the Dallas Parks and Rec Department, multiple other parks and rec departments, and GameStop, for example. So there's a lot of different groups that use our product to basically create community gathering and community experiences just through the medium of gaming and esports.
So, okay, so you be careful what you ask for, right? When it comes to like a COVID, all of a sudden drive people saying, I need a virtual ability to socialize. So what's been what's been your biggest hurdle? What I mean, you guys got to be just like slammed with trying to scale.
The biggest hurdle is giving everybody what they want, every little detail that they want, right? Like there's so many cool things that you can add into a platform. I mean, our platform is two-sided, and I don't think I've really explained that, but on one side there's a web app where admins can then go in, create their page, create leagues, and then host these, manage the leagues, find out when the games are, communicate with their players, with their leagues, with their organizations. They have a whole marketing suite. They have analytics and all sorts of details that they can learn about their organization and manage, their rec league organization. But players on the other end, they have a mobile app that they can download. They can join leagues. They can see their schedule, reschedule their games, submit their scores, communicate with their opponents, their teams, their leagues, all of these different levels. For them, it's like kind of like a fantasy sports experience, but they're actually playing the games.
Mm-hmm.
For the admins, it looks just like any other rec league experience. But on both of them, there's so many cool things that you can do. Gaming is so unique to have so many fun, different aspects of the community, and you can make fun of people and elbow them with a, good, cool little GIF, or you can, on the admin side, you can create new cool ways to do playoffs, and all of these things exist, but you can only build them so fast. So thankfully we're taking advantage of the scale and growing quickly. But that's where it comes from. It's difficult to scale that quickly.
Right. So how are you funded? You're funded. You were previously at a VC. Did they fund you? Friends and family? How have you raised the money that's allowing you to do all of this?
Well, thanks to that previous VC and the relationships there, we've created. So far we've had a couple $100,000 of angel funding that are very much related with that VC, and around in St. Louis, and our relationships here to bring us to this point. And we're working towards some exciting things. And the other funding route that I'd be excited to share in the coming months and weeks, and that will allow us to scale in a lot quicker fashion. So we got some things in the pipeline that we're really excited to talk about, but we're not quite there yet.
Oh, great. You're going to leave a teaser for the audience, right?
Oh, so yeah. Follow us on Twitter for more information, right?
Well, I have to say, we were talking a little bit at the break about, my experience of having been part of the team to launch World of Warcraft when I was at HP. And we literally had tractor trailers full of servers driving all over the US and Europe. And we did 30 plus data centers in China for the launch and for the scaling of that. And scale is a tough problem, but it's actually an excellent problem to have. It's
not something
your life is much better when you're scaling up than when you're scaling down, let me tell you. I posed up a couple of questions for you. One question is, well, look, you're probably the same age or even younger than my adult kids, right? So you came out of a VC. This has kind of been, it's still an early stage. You've done your angel round, right? But I'm guessing you already have some things that you wish somebody had given you as far as advice from the very beginning. And it happened, look, I did 13 startups before I got my first IPO. So been around the block a few times on the startup world. Wouldn't advise that to anybody, by the way. Maybe I just don't learn very well. But, what advice do you wish someone had told you when you were starting Mission Control? What would you have done differently from the beginning?
That's a fascinating question in a lot of ways, because I feel like, there's two different areas of like wishing you did something differently. Like one is like true regret, like it burns you on the inside. And then the other is like, oh, I look back, and honestly, my co-founder and I were talking last night about looking back and what we could have changed. And it's not something that we regret as much as like it's a burning inside, like it burns us, but it's still something like, I think we could have done better if we had known this. And I think that the core of that is to not overplan. Byron and I are very focused on strategy and planning, and we can do a really good job at putting together a plan and a strategy and executing that. Except there's a point at which it's too much planning and not enough executing. And I feel like that totally makes sense. And had we been able to plan less, play more, focus more, work more on the actual product in the early days. I feel like, we could be in a different position, maybe a little bit more prepared for the scale that we're seeing today. It's not something I truly regret. It's more looking back and say, hey, next time, let's focus on doing it this way instead.
Well, here's the question. Then have you and Byron then changed how you're going forward then? Is it pull back on, because you shared earlier on about your co-founder, right? Very detailed oriented, wants to make sure everything's aligned, drive that execution piece. Have both of you then had to kind of back off of what your natural skill is to say, we just got to get this done. We got to get, the heat is on. We've got to make this thing come together.
It's more of allowing us to go to our natural skills independently. I think, we work together very closely. And there was a little bit of the, hey, we don't need to work together this closely. Let's specialize, you on that, me on this. And I think that's something that like Byron and I, like, we're very excited about, working together in this and both having this cool, experience of starting a company, growing a company. But there's also an element where in order to get stuff done, he's got to super focus on something over here and I've got to super focus on something over here. And honestly, the other thing is that it really helps to have good people around you who can also specialize on other things. It's really hard to build a company just two people. When you got a couple of people and some interns who are really bright and helping you out, it's a big difference. It's a big difference in this situation.
Well, and I think this goes back to where we started the conversation about you and your co-founder and the fact that you had many years of being together, working together, being hired together, right? So the trust that you have established versus, you two met in a bar and then over beer think that you're going to start a company and don't really know much about each other, right? I think, there is that level of trust that has to be there in order to say, hey, I trust you to do this. I'm going to do this. You go do that.
Right. Totally agree.
And is the interns and the other teams, are they all from the same university? Are they friends of friends? How do you find your staff?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, we've kept it loose. We have a cool, cultural values set that we have, but when it boils down to finding people, it's like, can we find people who are intelligent, they're driven, and people who are generally kind, but also are curious and open and I think are good teammates. And basically when we get towards those things, it's pretty easy to find the right person for our perspective. You can really find some bright, amazing people. And a lot of it has to do with, some sort of personal referral or relationship, because a lot of good people stick together. So we found that. But St. Louis University has a couple of interns on our team. My high school even has, and I've met people from my who are much younger than me, but went to the same high school who ended up on the team. But some are just random people we've met who, we think are really bright. And we're like, hey, come and work for us for a little bit, including some of our other executives that we've hired on. Just really smart, bright people that are good fits for our team.
Hey, great. So, Austin, if listeners want to keep track of what's going on in Mission Control, where is the best place for them to find you?
Our website's got everything. So you go to missioncontrol.gg. You can connect with our socials. You can get on our Discord. You can learn about downloading our app or even starting your own rec league through our platform. So all that information is there, missioncontrol.gg.
Great. And we'll have all the links up on the show notes over at Killer Innovations. Austin, thank you for taking the time for joining us here at Killer Innovations today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So as you wrap up today's show, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join us here at Killer Innovations. We are, as you now know, if you've been watching for any period of time, we're back doing more videos as part of the interviews. So not just the podcast, but you actually get to see the guest, which can some people find more entertaining. So check out the YouTube channel. You can find it over at the Innovators Network's YouTube channel. And I'm also posting it on my personal YouTube channel over at Phil McKinney, so you can just find me over there. And with that, we're going to wrap up today's show. And again, if you have been a listener for any amount of time, you know that the real drive purpose for the show is to pay it forward. both the team here, but also our guests to share their experiences, that you have that as input as you go on your own innovation journey and take your ideas and make them real. So the one ask that we always have is help us out by telling others about the show. Share with your friends. Share a show that you might think is appropriate to a specific individual. That helps us. Also, post a comment. Hop on over to Google Play or hop on over to iTunes and give us a rating. Helps people find the show and helps us grow our subscriber base. And we greatly appreciate that. And with that, stay safe. COVID-19, crazy times, but we're here and we'll continue to put on a show. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.